Talking with people with music in their genes, their blood, and in their soul. You are watching Musical Interlude. Hi, and welcome to Musical Interlude. I'm your host, Casey Bell, and Frankie Raye is our guest today joining us. Let's start this interview. What is your earliest memory of music when you first realized it was something you were inclined in?
So I was fortunate enough to have my whole family into music. As early as I remember, honestly, my mom was always singing and my dad was always singing. I remember my mom and dad playing guitar together, and I just always used to watch them. So it was like I didn't know it was something you could do as a career. I think it was just in my life already with my family members. So I just thought it was something everybody did, and I used to watch shows like Barney and early childhood shows, and I always used to sing along and, pretend that I was on the show. So I didn't really think of it as anything different. I just thought music is, as common as talking or running or something like that.
When was the first time you said you kind of noticed it was a quote unquote job, and what was the inspiration? Because in this society, it's, even though everyone likes music and there would be, there are people who say, oh, this song really helped me get through the death of this one, and this song helped me with this, this song helped me with that. So, but yet people still have the mindset when their child comes to them, oh, go get a job, don't do that, that's a hobby. But if everyone did that, then there wouldn't be any songs for people to get through life. So I don't understand why people still have a problem with people doing that. So obviously, I'm assuming your parents were very supportive of you, but what still inspired you to do this as a job instead of just getting a 9 to 5?
So I was working a 9 to 5 for a long time, and I remember, I want to say maybe it was in like the college ages where I would go to restaurants and see people playing music at, bars and restaurants and things like that. And I, would go up sometimes and ask them like, oh, so is this what you do all the time? And they'd say, yeah, I just go to different restaurants and play music. And I was like, oh, so it's not something where I have to like get a record deal and be famous if I want to do this. I can actually just do it as a job. And if something happens that's bigger, then that's great. If some bigger opportunity comes along, then that's fine. But I was like, well, I kind of just want to play music as a job, even if it's in restaurants and coffee shops and, bars and things like that. So I was definitely well into my adulthood when I realized that you could just do it as a job. Because before that, I always thought, oh, well, I'm sure with things like that, you have to either move to Nashville or New York, and you have to audition for record labels and people like that. And it's not really, that's not all of what being a musician is. So I was definitely well into adulthood. And before that, in high school, I thought I would either have to go to college for it and become a music teacher or something like that. I didn't really know that you could still have fun with it and make money at the same time.
What was your journey through it? Because with, you want to be a real estate agent, you take the test, pass it, you become a real estate agent. That's the same way for everywhere. You want to be a lawyer or a doctor, the same path is basically the same. But with music, there really is no path. You just kind of walk blindlessly and just figure it out. So what was your walk, your journey?
See, and that was the most difficult thing was figuring out a journey, because I had to learn that there is not just one way. I would listen to other artists say things like, oh, well, if you want to make it, just never give up, just never give up. And I'm like, okay, got it. I won't give up. Now tell me what to do. Like that wasn't really advice. So for me, I just kind of started pretending that I already was a musician and that I was, getting photographers to take pictures of me and then making a Facebook page. And then I said, okay, well, now I'll make a website and I'll take little videos of myself just playing songs and I'll upload them. And that's really just how it started. And I remember the earliest opportunity that I got. I was scrolling through Facebook one day, and you have those friends that you don't quite know, but you're still connected with them. And he posted this thing saying, "Oh, I'm looking for acoustic singer-songwriters. I'm hosting an acoustic battle of the bands. So if you want to be a part of it, send me a message." And I was like, "Wow, okay, convenient. I just made my Facebook page. I just built my website." And I sent him a message, and he's like, "All right, cool, you're in. You'll open the show." And that's really what started it. I brought everyone out that I knew. I had them take videos and photographs of me on the stage. And from there at that show, I met the guy who was running sound. I went and introduced myself, and he said, "Oh, well, I host shows here sometimes. So, add me on Facebook and I'll let you know the next time I host a show here." And I said, "Okay, cool." And then a few weeks later, he said, "Hey, Frankie, would you like to be a part of this acoustic show I'm putting together?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And I just started sending out messages to anyone I knew, fellow musicians. I started joining these groups, these musician groups and these singer-songwriter groups, and going to see them play. And then I would introduce myself to whoever was booking that restaurant or venue or whatever. And it just kind of was slowly, I just started networking as much as I could. And before I knew it, I was getting paid gigs. I had some people say, "Oh, well, I play at this restaurant down the street. I can't play next weekend. Do you want to cover for me? Maybe it'll be a good audition thing for you." And I was like, "Okay." So I just started slowly, meeting people and walking into restaurants and saying, "Oh, well, do you guys have live music? Who books the music here?" Doing it that way. I printed out little business cards that I started passing out, flyers. What else? I just started sending out messages on Facebook to people and going to open mic nights. That was a big thing. I figured out where the open mics were, and then I would ask the host or whoever, "Oh, well, do they actually have live music aside from the open mic?" And they'd say, "Oh yeah, just talk to so and so." And I actually got a few gigs that way, where the manager came out for my slot, and I'd say, "Oh, well, I'm about to go on. If you want to see, I'd love to start gigging here." And they said, "Okay, we'll watch you." And then sometimes I would book shows right there. Sometimes they'd say, "Give me a call next week," or whatever. And I just started hustling as much as I could. And I remember a lot of times I would send out, 100 messages a day, and I'd only get maybe 2 responses. And they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, what are your open dates?" or something like that. So it was a very slow process. And I just had to learn that I couldn't just sit back and be discovered, because I thought that that's how it worked. You just wait for them to ask you, and it's not it at all. You have to get in their faces,
Basically.
So that's kind of how it worked.
I think that's the one thing they always talk about rejections, but they never talk about being ignored. I think I've been
Yeah,
ignored more than I've been rejected. So
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And a lot of times it's more often than not you get ignored because, people don't want to hurt your feelings. They don't want to be mean, but and sometimes they're just too busy. So especially, I play a lot of restaurants and bars, and that their job is not just to book music. Their job is to run a restaurant, and music's just a part of it. And unfortunately, the music side kind of gets forgotten a little bit. And I'll message and I'll say, "Hey, are you booking for next month yet?" And they're like, "Oh, music calendar, I totally forgot. Yes, send me your dates," because they have all this other stuff to worry about too. Yeah.
okay, so talk about Theodore. What was the inspiration behind that song?
That song, it's really funny. So I played this one show, and I was finished and I was waiting for my check, waiting quietly. And there was this really intoxicated gentleman who was just like, "Hey, hey, got stuff," like trying to get my attention. And I was like, "Okay, I just finished the show." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you for listening to the music," trying to be nice. And he was just like, "Hey, I'm talking to you. Come over here, sweet thing." Just like gross, being so inappropriate. And I remember I just like kind of rolled my eyes. Like I didn't want to be mean, but I just kind of grabbed my bag and I said, "Have a nice night." And I walked away trying to be pleasant. And he's just like, "Oh, oh, you're just going to walk away? Oh, you're just like, was mad at me because I wasn't accepting his advances, you know? And I'm just like, oh man, give me strength. Like, Lord, give me strength. And I was just like, I got really upset because I was like, you know, if you liked the music, that's great. You can just say, hey, I really enjoyed your music, but don't expect to be screaming at me and for me to just, you know, accept that. Like, if you're screaming at me in that way, no, I'm not going to come up and talk to you. You know, why would I come up and talk to you if you're screaming at me like that? And he got upset with me. And I'm like, wait a second, I should be upset at you right now. You're the one who's being inappropriate and out of line. And it's like, there's this thing, and I didn't want it to sound like a, you know, kind of women's anthem, sexist kind of thing. I didn't want it to sound like that, but it turned out to be that way because it was like, you know, so because I'm the girl and you're the man who's screaming at me, I'm the one that has to come up and still be sweet and have a smile on my face. Like, oh, you want me to come talk to you? Okay. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. So that's kind of how the song started. It was just that anger of just like, you know, back off. Like, I don't owe you anything. I don't owe you a conversation. I don't owe you a smile or anything like that. And it's like he got offended because I didn't appreciate that he was yelling at me and saying a lot of vulgar sexist things. It's like, what? I'm sorry. So that's kind of how the song started. And you know, a lot of my songs do come from conflict, and I don't like it as much because I feel like I'm just complaining. But that's kind of how the song started. It was through that conflict. And then I just kind of started thinking about all the other times in my life where I was upset at some drunk guy. And I'm sure a lot of men have those stories too, with, you know, women being inappropriate with them. And I would love to hear their songs about it as well. You know, it's not a man-hating song. It's just about the situation that I went through. So, and then so I went to college for art history. So I, you know, studied a lot about that. And there's the famous Theodora portrait that's, you know, over in Italy in Ravenna, and you could see it. And Theodora was the wife of Justinian, and she was the first women's rights activist. And I remember studying her in college. And that's kind of where I got the idea to focus on her, you know, like a women's rights, but it was like the earliest one, you know. And if you want to read about her, she's incredible. She started the first, like, basically a shelter for women who were abused and being forced into, you know, prostitution and stuff like that. And this was back, you know, way back, you know, the Byzantine era. She was doing all of this. So I kind of just focused on that. And I thought it was a good hook, you know, like Theodora, because no one really talks about her in songs. I don't really know if there are any songs about her. And, you know, there are too many songs right here where they use a name anyway in the hook nowadays. So that's kind of how it all just came together. And I just started writing, and I don't know if it was like a prophecy or what, but the song just came together in a day, you know, with the words and everything and the hook. And so it's kind of meant to be that situation with the guy. And I don't know, it's meant to be.
Yeah, the two events in your life helped you write a song.
Yeah.
Definitely. So your last question, if you could collaborate, let's say you had a musical god fairy, a mother god, and she said, just say a name, any name. And once you say that name, whether they're a dead person or someone who's alive, you would end up in the studio with them collaborating. Who would that person be and why?
You know, oh, there's so many. And I read this question. I was thinking about it a lot. I'm going to go more contemporary and simple. I think Sarah Bareilles, you know, first of all, she's done so many things. She ventured off into musical theater and wrote her own musical, which is, I have a huge background in musical theater. I actually was going to pursue that before music. I was going to go to a school in New York for, you know, Broadway and stuff like that. And she ventured off into that, but her songs they're so catchy and upbeat, which is what I love to write. But her lyrics are not, she puts a lot of thought into her lyrics. She's very clever, very kind of tongue in cheek, uses a lot of metaphors and riddles, which I love. And she kind of infuses those together because, you know, the thing with a lot of pop songs now, it's like, sure, the melodies are catchy and the music could be great, but the lyrics are just like, you know, like what you're singing about doing a shot or, you know,
Yeah.
drinking at a bar, you know what I mean? And she actually writes about events and things that are meaningful to her. And she's very courageous in her, you know, she kind of has those snapback kind of songs like Theodore, which I really like. And yeah, it's just when I listen to her songs, it just sounds like whenever I try to write a song, it always sounds like a Sarah Bareilles-ish kind of song because she's just, yeah, it's just very catchy and very complex melodies too. You know, she has a lot of different weird chord changes and her voice is incredible. So she can just fit in all those little weird crevices and, you know, use these weird vocal runs and these turns that you wouldn't expect, which is what I kind of try to do. So let's say Sarah Bareilles. I'll keep it contemporary because there's a lot from the past. I mean, I could go on, but I'll say Sarah Bareilles for that one.
I've seen a million like you who can bear to be ignored by young, pretty girls' eyes. Like your anger is justified just cause you got denied, like you're some kind of god. But God's long gone, and so are the days where anyone needs to be saved. You think you know what you don't understand. You'll never understand. I wanna be like Theodore in the days of the Byzantine. The courage of a warrior, the respect of a king. Everyone's a victim when the pride is on the line and you're nobody. You're just another guy. Did your mama never treat you right? Did your daddy put up a fight every time you started to cry? Inferiority's a bit.
Thank you for watching the musical interlude. I want to thank our guest, Frankie Raye, for joining me. And I want to thank you, the audience, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Have yourself a wonderful day.